if you're going to live this life journey, why spend your time on anything less than what sets your soul on fire? Like, really, what are we doing? What are we doing if we're not pursuing the thing that matters the most to us anyway?
Welcome to Breakthrough Mode, the podcast where we intentionally get into the driver's seat of our lives, shift out of monotony and mediocrity, and step on the gas towards becoming the person we were always meant to become.
Hello and welcome to episode 240 on the Breakthrough Mode podcast. I am your host, Megan Bauer. Thank you so much for joining me today and pushing play on today's episode. Last Friday, on episode 237, we chatted about this idea of having 1,000 funerals as you let go of versions you have been and step into new versions of you on your path to becoming. Now, part of that process necessitates knowing what to let go of, what to release, what to give up, what to quit on. And so that is what we are chatting about today. Because all over the internet, you can find things like never quit. The only failure is when you quit. Just keep going, push harder, keep going, right? Like never give up. You can find that message all over the internet, encouraging people to continue on their path. And you can also find things like protect your energy. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Set boundaries. And so it can feel a little polarizing when we don't know if we should quit or if we should continue. Now, I think on the whole, people give up on things far too soon in order to actually feel results. They give up when it gets hard. They give up when they're in the messy middle. I think on the whole that the never give up message would be the default one that I would subscribe to, is keep going. However, knowing when it is actually the right thing to step away is a power move on your journey of becoming who it is you are meant to become. Now, as we get into this episode, I want to start with a story. It's one of my favorite stories. I've likely shared it here on the podcast before, but it bears repeating because it illustrates this idea so beautifully. So there was a guy who, whenever he was with his friends or his family, it felt like he was on a new diet all the time. Like, wait, I thought you were doing keto and now you're, doing this Mediterranean thing, or I thought you were vegan and now you're, doing all protein or, whatever. I don't really know diets, but his friends and family saw this guy as wildly inconsistent with his diets. And these are the people that are kind of not on his, super inner circle, but kind of on the peripheral, right? Like they care about him, but they're not involved in the details as much. The thing was, this guy did try a whole bunch of diets, but he wasn't trying them haphazardly. He had set up this very regimented, well-documented schedule to try all of these diets in an effort to discover which way of feeding himself gave him the most energy. So he would get on a diet and he would stay on this diet long enough to feel and notice the effects on his body and specifically on his energy levels. He wanted to eat in the way that gave him the most energy. And on that path of trying to figure it out, he started and quit a ton of different diets. Now, I don't know what the time frame was that he gave himself, but he gave himself set time frames like, okay, I'm going to do this for you know, 60 days or 90 days or whatever to really feel and notice and document the impact that this way of eating has on my energy. So, in one view, he was starting and quitting all sorts of diets left and right, right? Like this guy was eating one way, you know, in one quarter and another way in another quarter. In another view, he never quit because the goal was all about figuring out which way of eating, which way of feeding himself gave him the most energy. And all of the diets that he stopped and started were just information on his path to figuring out what energized him the most. So sometimes when we are tempted to quit on something, are we quitting on a method to get to the goal, or are we quitting on the goal? That would be a question that I would really ask yourself, because if you know what the purpose is for why you're doing something, and whether or not that something is actually aligned with who you want to be, what you want to do, how you want to live, the person that you want to become, sometimes our way to get there, our way to becoming, sometimes that transportation method does need to change. And we can view that as like, I'm quitting on myself. Like I wanted to reach this goal. I have this dream. I want this thing. But this transportation method isn't working out. That's okay. That is a strategic move of quitting what it is you're engaged in, what it is you're committed to, what it is you're doing in an effort to try another method to get to your goal. But all in all, when you zoom out enough, the goal still remains the same. You never quit on that. You're just looking for the path to get there. However, if you still want that goal and you quit on the path and the goal, that is 100% when you are giving up too soon. And I think a lot of the times, when this message of never give up, just keep trying come in, a lot of the times we see the goal, we see a path to that goal. And when the path gets hard, or when the path doesn't feel good, or when the path feels like it's not even going in the right direction anymore, we quit on all of it. We bag the path and we bag the goal and we just throw it all out. That is where the message of do not quit comes in. Because it's okay to quit on the transportation method if it's not working out, right? You've been trying it, you've been working at it, you've been doing the thing, and it's just not getting you there. That's okay. Not every transportation method is going to get you to the goal. But if you keep that goal in mind, in your sights, and you just switch up your methods, you just try again a different way, you're not actually quitting. You're not actually quitting. The key here, though, is that your goal, your destination, where you are heading, is aligned. That thing is something that you truly, truly want. Because if it's not something that you want, it's going to be way easy to quit. It's going to be way easy to not follow through because you don't actually have anything that's driving you there. You don't have any internal motivation getting you to the goal because you don't even care. You don't even want it. You don't even want to get there. It doesn't even matter. So that's when I feel like we find a lot of quitting in our lives, when we set goals that don't actually matter and they're not even aligned. And really, Megan, why would we do that? Why would we set goals that don't actually matter to us? Well, the biggest reason that we would set goals that don't actually matter to us is because the goals that do matter are scary. They freak us out. And if anyone were to know that that is what we wanted, we would then feel responsible to figure it out. And we're scared to figure it out because what if we don't make it happen? What if we fail? What if we're not good enough? What if people think we're crazy or they laugh or they, tear us down instead of build us up? What if, what if, what if? What if we go towards the thing that actually is closest to our heart and we find ourselves lacking? Then what? This is that whole idea of like, it's safer. We find it safer to not try, to not prove ourselves inadequate in the pursuit of something that truly, truly matters to us. Because if we set a goal that doesn't matter to us and we fall short, then we're like, whatever, I didn't really care either. I didn't care about that anyway. It's fine. It doesn't actually hurt us because we didn't actually care. But when we care, then it hurts. When we care, then we want to feel like we are up for the challenge, that we can accomplish it, that we can do it. And we're scared of the failure if we find that we are otherwise. It's better in to in in an effort to protect yourself, you find that it is better to not go after the thing of your heart because then you get to stay safe and you get to stay protected. So that is like, there's lots of reasons why we go after things that we don't really want, or we half-heartedly go after things that we don't actually want. But that is the big one. That's the big one because we don't want to fall short of something that means so much to us. The trick is, though, that we won't be able to muster up the requirements to achieve without it mattering to us. And so the only thing to do is to go after the thing that matters to you and trust that whatever you need to learn, however you need to grow, whatever needs to happen for you to get there will show up along the way. And I get it that that's scary, that's tricky. But if you're going to spend your life anyway, if you're going to live this life journey, why spend your time on anything less than what sets your soul on fire? Like, really, what are we doing? What are we doing if we're not pursuing the thing that matters the most to us anyway? Like, that's something to think about. That's something to think about. So when you're thinking about quitting something, there are a few things to ask yourself. One, are you quitting on the method or are you quitting on the goal? Because if you're quitting on the goal, then you need to really acknowledge whether or not that was something that's super aligned for you, or whether it was something that you set because it felt easy or it felt attainable or it just wasn't as scary. And that's okay. It's okay to quit on goals that are no longer aligned. This isn't an episode about like just keep going for the sake of it. That's for sure. This is an episode about intentional quitting, and that's really at the core of it. If you are becoming intentionally, if you are on your path to the next version of you, there are things you will need to quit. That is simply part of it because you're going to be doing new things. You're going to be engaging with life in a new way. There's new things that are going to come up. And in order for those new things to have space, you must let go of things now. So it's not about persevering and continuing all of the things just to be consistent. It's about intentional releasing. It's about giving up intentionally. So distinguish the difference between giving something up because it's not actually aligned with who it is that you want to become, or it's not working out towards your goal. It's not getting you to where you want to go. And so you want to try a different route, or giving up because it's hard, or because there's more for you to learn, or because it's scary. Because if you're giving up because it's hard and it's scary, chances are you'll regret giving up, because the desire of your heart is not going to go away. It's still going to be a desire on your heart. And then what you're going to do is just put this I gave up guilt on top of it that you'll then have to work through in order to start again, in order to go after it again. And I guess there's always that option of not going after it ever again, just like letting it go totally. And maybe that is part of your journey. But I would say, and I really truly believe this, if it is on your heart, if it is a true burning desire on your heart for something you should do, someone you should be, a way for you to show up and engage in this world, that is part of your potential. And it is getting your attention the only way it knows how, and that is by lighting a fire within you. So if you have something lighting a fire within you, that is not ever the thing to give up on. It's just not. That's the thing that's part of your potential. That's the person you are meant to step up into. That's the work the world needs you to do. Like, this is the thing. This is the thing. And you can give up on ways to get there. You can give up on any sort of things that are in your way to fulfilling this thing that lights your soul on fire. But don't give up on that thing. Truly. Don't give up on that thing. Because in your pursuit of achieving that thing or accomplishing that thing or being that person, that is the path. That is your becoming path. That is the way. That is what you're meant to do. That is where you're going. That's who you're meant to become. Everything else, the things that you started that don't really light a fire, the things that you committed to because other people were doing it or because, it's what somebody else wanted you to do, those are the things to let go of. Those are the things that to let go of. So I would invite you to grab your journal as you think about things that you need to potentially give up on, and ask yourself, look, if I were to start from zero today, like never engaged in this thing ever before, would I still choose to do this? Would I still choose to engage in this? Would I still choose to show up this way? And be honest with yourself. If you started from zero, would you still start that today? Because if you wouldn't, that's a really big sign that it's something to let go of. You can also try an exercise of giving this thing, whatever it is that you're considering giving up on, 60 days of full, wholehearted effort. Because another reason that we tend to want to give up on things is because we weren't all in the first place. And so when we give half-hearted efforts, we get half-hearted results. So if you give yourself this time frame, like, I am going to go all in on this thing for 60 days. And then after those 60 days, I'm going to reevaluate where I'm at. I'm going to reevaluate how I feel about this thing, the progress that I've made, the results that I have or have not made. And then at that point, I will decide whether or not to continue or to give up. That is also a really great way to be like, yeah, I gave it my all and then it still didn't feel right. Or that I gave it my all and I'm so glad I didn't quit. That could go either way. But it's a really exciting experiment and it's a really scary one too because it's scary to go all in on something. However, having that back door open of like, I'm going to go all in 60 days and then if it doesn't work out then I can bail. Having that back door open feels a little less scary because then it doesn't feel like it's forever. It doesn't feel like you're, 100% committed to this for the rest of your life. Like you can always choose to walk out that door after having given it your all. So that's what I have for you today. Grab your journal, ask yourself that question. Whatever it is that you're considering quitting on, whether it's a project, a way of being, even as you like evaluate things in your home. Like, I love that question of if I were to see this in the store today, would I still buy it? Yes or no? If it's a no, then maybe it doesn't belong in your home anymore. If you wouldn't restart that thing again today, maybe it doesn't belong in your life anymore. And if you're still not sure, give it that experiment. Give it that 60 days experiment. When you quit, it's not automatically a failure. And when you persevere, it's not automatically noble. It's it all depends on what is underneath all of that. What is the intention? Where are you going? What is the purpose? To what end? Why are you doing this? Are you doing it just to be consistent? Are you doing it not to ruffle any feathers or rock the boat? Are you doing it just because it's what you've always done? Or are you doing it because it sets your soul on fire and this is your one life? So why not? I hope this was a bit of a reframe on the idea of quitting and giving up and letting go because so much of this like modern life is all about, getting accomplishments, getting things, getting, titles, getting whatever, it's about getting. And we need to stop and pause that as we are on our pursuit for, acquiring, there is a letting go that we have to go through. And even if it's getting all the books on your shelf, you're letting go of open space. You're letting go of, you know, a cluttered free shelf or whatever it is. You're letting go of something even as you acquire. We don't often notice the trade off, but you can trade those off intentionally, both in a physical way and in a, time commitment way and in an achievement way. And most definitely on your path to becoming, you have to let go of ways of being, habits, people you've been. And sometimes that letting go feels like giving up. Like, I don't want to give up on that. I'll journal about that. Well, why don't you want to give up on that? What's underneath that desire to not give up on that? And what are you getting from holding on to it? Because there's always something. There's always something when you want to hold on to something that you've outgrown. There's always something that you're getting for it. And just by knowing what that is can be the key to truly letting go of it. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I have more in store along this theme. And for those who are on my email newsletter, coming in the coming weeks, I have a really great series for you that is going to just launch you into spring in the best way possible. So if you're not on my email list, I encourage you to get on my email list so that you don't miss it. Thanks again. I totally love you. Bye for now.